Well, welcome everybody to this high holy day of St. Patrick's Day. We will try to get through this so we can go have a few green beers here tonight and enjoy the evening. So with that, let's just start and raise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you very much. We have somebody with a lot of green on with Guinness. That's beautiful in the audience. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. I think everybody has been here, so I don't have to explain the order. We will go, I'm calling it officially to order now, and if we could take the roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Turnbull.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Morosky Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Carter.
Here.
Janetti.
Here.
Prince.
Here. Great. So we will be going through first, before we go through the approval of the agenda. This is the first meeting. We're going back to online. We're one of 8 or 9% of the communities in all of Michigan doing that, which is great. We're one of only 2 or 3 that do it for every subject. So we're pretty fired up. Bear with us because this is kind of new again today, and we will be going through different steps. There might be a delay. We will look at that. Not a delay for us here, but we will walk through that in a minute, Ken, how we're doing it and how they go online. And we're pretty fired up. So every subject, you have a chance to come up. And again, anything that's not on the agenda, both those that are online and both those that are here in the council chambers. So with that, I'm looking, you have an agenda in front of you, and there's 2 things on the agenda, and I think we might bring something off the consent agenda. Is that correct, George?
Yes, I'd like to request that we move item F from the consent agenda to new business C. We have a issue about where the payment is going. I want to make sure to clarify a quick issue with council.
Okay, so we are taking F off of the consent, and we will add that as 9C. Is that correct? Yep. Okay. Is there anything else that you see before? Okay, I'm looking for approval of the agenda with those changes on your motion. Anybody have that motion?
Motion to approve.
Great.
Support.
Support. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Good, we have an agenda. Let's go now to public comment. So if you're here to talk about the consulting service proposal, which is 9A, or Ford Field Gateway Project, that's 9B, or you just listed consideration of approving the payment for Northville Commons area, the farmer's market. If you're here to talk about any of those 3 things, I'm going to give you that opportunity. If it's anything other than that, this would be the time to come up to the mic. Anything going once, going twice? Thank you very much. I'm closing off public comment here. Online, boy, they must be partying hardy out there tonight. So, so before we do that, why don't you just say, I'll let you do it once. It's a little bit different. There's more security protocols with the state and stuff now. So no, not that I'm explaining or nobody asked me the question, but there's 5 or 6 different municipalities sued. There's more protocols now. Hardly anybody went back. We believe it's the right thing to do to go back to have public comment. It's a good night to be testing because there's not a ton of people, which is great. You know, we're here for it. But with that, Ken, why don't you tell us how they go on?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as you mentioned, we have a slightly different procedure for making public comment. Essentially, if you're watching this live stream on YouTube and you would like to make a public comment, you'll need to dial in to the 888 number with a regular telephone. And what I'm going to talk about here is all in the meeting agenda in the first paragraph. But in a nutshell, you'll use your regular telephone, you'll dial the 888 number, and then you'll enter the meeting ID. It'll ask you for a participant. You don't need to enter the participant. You just hit pound again. Once you do that step, you'll be brought to the meeting, and then you'll be placed in a waiting room. And then me as the host will enter you into the live meeting. And if you have a comment, you just need to raise your virtual hand. And to raise your virtual hand, press *9. Again, all of this information is in that first paragraph in the agenda. Once you raise your virtual hand, I'll call the last 4 digits of your phone number. Once you hear, and make sure you listen for the last 4 digits of your phone number, because once you hear that, that's when you're queued up to speak and you press *6 to unmute your phone. Zoom does not let me unmute other people's phones. So you'll need to unmute by pressing *6, and then you'll proceed to make your public comment.
Great. And I actually did that. It took me about 15 seconds. We did the test before. It's very, most of the things are the same as it was before. We explained a lot of things that most people know in *9, but I test it, and I'm not unbelievably great on all the electronics. I use them all, but it only took me about 15, 18 seconds. We wanted to make sure. I said, if I can get in, everybody can get in on that. So it worked out very well. So with that, if there's anybody online tonight.
It is a great process, and we use it in a lot of different communities.
Right, and you have, a dozen or so communities that you're looking to do that with, and Ken worked with the state of Michigan, worked with different groups for these protocols so we could go back on it, because we're one that was trying to push to go back on it, and we wanted to do that, and we heard public comment. So we are back on as of today. So I don't see any real public out there today.
You know what, I saw
That's a number that dialed.
I saw a number pop up, yeah, correct.
Yep,
And then
did
it
it
went away.
pop and go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I am opening it up. I'm going to take my time, going once, going twice. We are closing off public comment. They can come back on for anything that's on the agenda, so they have 2 more times. Again, we're one of only 2 or 3 every time. Some of the ones went back on and tried to do the beginning and the end, and they found just doing it once. So they didn't do public comment for things not on the agenda. So that was what I found for most people. We are very open. So if we have 5 things on the agenda, you'll be able to talk on all 5 things, plus anything that's not on the agenda. That's part of our DNA. Plymouth kind of copied us years ago. They are one of the only other 2 in the metro, but there are 3 to my knowledge. So it's great. It's a great time to test this, because we won't go wild here tonight, apparently. So good. Thank you very much, Ken, for all that work on behalf of the city and your other 12 communities. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So with that, then, we are going to the consideration of approving the consent agenda. And remember, we have taken off F and moved that onto the agenda. So if there's any discussion on that, let's go right ahead.
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Excellent. So we have a motion. Do we have support for the motion? Support. We have support. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Great. We have a consent agenda. So let's go on. Presentations, we have none tonight. Public hearings, we have none. Unfinished business, as I've said, usually we finished all our business. That always doesn't happen. Number 9. New business. We have 3 different things tonight, not 2 like was originally published. Oh, and just one thing, Michelle, I think we had one that came on for a public comment that you listed online too, didn't we? Had one late. And I appreciate, I talked to just about everybody Sunday night. They go through all their packages. So thank you for doing that. And you get a hold of a lot of people in the administration or getting your questions answered. So thank you. My expectations are small. I just need them to go through all 200 to 300 pages of that package every weekend in the whole bit. So thank you all. Thank you for all the detailed work. You don't see the work. A lot of the council members are working with everybody before and right up until game time. So just because we're voting on things, there's 27 boards and committees doing a lot of work, and appreciate all the work of each and every one of you here tonight. Okay, so with that, we have 3 things on the real agenda tonight on the new business. 9A, consideration of approval of the consultant services proposal. And who is going to do it? Is that you?
Wendy's going to come up and
Wendy,
walk us
this
through
is
the
your
proposal.
time. You are on. We're trying to get to that green beer here tonight, so no need to run up here, but please do. Okay, we'll go from there. So 9A, again, consideration approval of a consultant service proposal from OHM in an amount of not to exceed $49,800 for preliminary engineering and design services for the River Trail extension. It's all yours.
Super.
No, it's not.
No,
but I would
that's-
like
that's the
to
next one.
memo Up there. Staff memo up from the packet or no?
You can talk us through while he's getting that.
Okay. I apologize for that. I don't seem to have the memo with me and I usually like to have reference. So what you have in front of you is a consultant services contract, a recommended contract award for design services to extend the Northville River Trail through Ford Field East. And that is the section of Ford Field that kind of wraps around behind the Water Wheel building. What we're looking at with this particular section is it would be an excellent project for a Natural Resources Trust Fund grant and a TAP grant. Those two grants can be used to partner with each other so that one serves as the local match for the other. So if you're successful with both of those, there's no local match required. Now, there is a bit of an exception to that in that neither one of those fund sources will pay for engineering costs prior to you receiving the grant. And so anything that we need to do to prepare for the grant is something that the city needs to absorb the cost of. TAP grants typically will require or need engineered drawings at about a 30%. Basically, what TAP is looking for is they want to know that the project is viable, that you have done enough design to know that the project can be built. One of the reasons this particular project would qualify for TAP is we are looking at doing the roadway crossings at either end of this particular trail section as well. So that would be a pedestrian crossing at Griswold where Ford Field East and West parks match. And then also on the other side, which would be across Main. And both of those are going to take some engineering and some research to determine the best way to do that. The other aspect of this project is, well, there's several that make it quite complicated. One is Ford Field East is has some contamination. And so there's some additional work that we're going to need to do to ensure that we are designing a project that's feasible there. The other thing is there's a couple of areas where Ford Field East is quite narrow and where this trail would probably be within a railroad track right of way. That anytime we're dealing with railroad companies is really challenging. So there's a number of things that we need to be looking at up front to prepare for a TAP grant. And then once we have the information for that TAP grant, we can use the same information for the Natural Resources Trust grant. We spoke to 5 different consulting firms and requested them to provide us with proposals for this work. OHM was the first consultant to provide us with a proposal. And in the memo, I tell you a little bit about the others that we reached out to. The challenge we had is a number of them I needed to continually reach out to. And we finally got a response back from one. It was on Friday after I had submitted the memo to City Council, so it was outside of the deadline. I did review the proposal anyway, because I felt they took the time to submit it and I wanted to do that. It also is good to double check pricing. And the price that they offered was kind of within the same range as OHM, but they did only give us a price for the first portion of the design, not the second. So it wasn't really complete. It was past the deadline. And so it isn't anything that I was prepared to bring forward to you. So the staff recommendation is still as presented in the memo, which is to award a contract to OHM. They will work and be preparing for, I think we had originally talked about preparing for an August submission to SEMCOG, but I believe we're looking at the October submission at this point in time.
They are looking, so we are doing everything we can. I'm on SEMCOG and the executive team that actually vote on that one. They came to us. We've been getting a lot from SEMCOG, so I'm feeling pretty bad, but they came to us because they had money's available for a TAP grant. So it's crucial that we get the engineering done. We couldn't believe it. We met with them twice. I try to stay out of it, but I will be there as one of the voters. I don't have to step down for some reason when we vote on this. So it is great. I didn't expect that, but they came to Wendy and to George, and they have monies available still. That it's like 99%. Nothing's 100% these days, but it's about 99% that the monies are in their coffers. We are so fortunate we started in 2019 and all these grants because we have them in the coffers. But this actually handles most of Ford Field East. The timing in our minds, by the last day of 26, the first 5 sections of the Riverwalk will be up and running. So it's crucial that we get these pieces going. That is the timing, correct?
That is the timing.
That is the timing, right? So
That's our goal.
this was a great benefit that we didn't plan on. This is $1.5 million theoretically on a TAP grant. They like to do $1 million. I think they're up to $1.5 million, and we will need it all. So thank you for kind of getting this together, getting that out there and pestering, 5 different engineering firms. That is our piece of it. So that's all I have. Thank you. Go ahead, John.
Couple quick questions. Size of the grant, I heard up to $1 million, but for the TAP grant and the MDNR, what do we think that's going to end up falling at?
And I think,
Roughly, I
and,
know
and
that it's
this
to be
is
determined.
just a real swag number here, but Natural Resources Trust Fund maxes out at 400,000.
Okay.
And so if we went up to $1 million with TAP, we'd be looking at 1.4. And based on some of the things we need to deal with, I think that's probably a pretty,
I saw in the
feasible
OHM,
number.
it said that based on master planning effort, anticipated construction costs for the trail would be 1.4 million. So that ties out. So we think we could get close to full funding through
Yeah.
these.
That would be the goal. If both of those grants come through, the only expense out of pocket from the city would be this award you're making today.
Great.
And then I have one other question, which could be a nuance within, so we don't necessarily have to resolve, but in the OHM application, there's MDNRFT funds applied for in 2026 will not be available until mid to late 2027 if the project's funded. But when we were talking about the timeline, we had talked about summer of 2027. So I was wondering if that MDNRFT or TF funding timeline impacts our overall timeline to try to start this by summer of 27.
Right, we'd be looking at applying for the Natural Resources Trust Fund grant in April, not this April, but next April.
Yep.
So that's April of 26. We hear whether those are recommended for award in December of 26. So it depends on when the state allocates the funds.
Okay.
Because we will have done a good portion of the design ahead of time because of TAP, I'm fairly confident that we could start construction that summer of 2027. So a lot of times we wait another year just because it's unpredictable when the legislature awards the funds.
Okay, thank you.
Others,
I have,
go right ahead.
So, is there, I can see the plus to delaying the application till October because there's not much time, between now and June for getting this work done and applying for the grant. Is there any downside to that, to waiting till October for the application in terms of how they roll funding and?
The one downside is that the Natural Resources Trust Fund, when you apply in April, they like to know that you have the funds for the match. But I think that we'll be able to work within COG's schedule to make sure we have what we need for that April deadline.
Yeah. And is the reason just is that it's a short timeline, given we're approving this now? Is that why we're not doing it in June? Pretty much?
Pretty much,
Okay,
yes.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes sense.
We'll really push on this.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of unknowns. Working with the county on the crossings for the streets, working with the railroad company.
The railroad.
And the other thing is if we need to look at some alternative layouts, then it would be best if we had probably some sort of public informational discussion as well. So we may need to have a component where we're talking a little more with the public.
Yeah. The other is which was, good. So they're going to look at feasibility of, because we need to cross the river at some point,
Right.
right? And are they, what in terms of the scope for OHM at this point, are they looking at the feasibility? Are they giving a cost estimate for that bridge? I mean, it's a pedestrian bridge, but,
Right, both.
okay, they are
They'll be
gonna,
looking at some alternative routes, identifying which is the recommended, which is the most feasible. And then based on that, they'll be developing drawings and giving us a estimate of cost.
and then they're also doing the concept as it connects over to the River Park. So, and going by Foundry Flask and that. I'm hoping they build from what was already done so they can sort of cut the amount of scope work they need to do there, because John Roby's done great work on that, right?
absolutely.
So we can, the other is, and I think, you mentioned one of the challenges is that, that this is a contaminated site. It was a heavily contaminated site. It was, a Superfund site that was remediated. The remediation was done in 2004, but even you see things still going on in 2016, 17. So, but they mention in their task one, we might have to do a FOIA for Eagle stuff. And I'll share with you, the Riverwalk Task Force was lucky to have a hydrogeologist working with us on the implementation plan, Jennifer Maud. She's still doing that, work. And we have, just as to help OHM, Eagle has what's called a RIDE info site. It's remediation info data exchange. That has all kinds of documents in it, including the covenant, restricted covenant, what remediation was done, and then it's got a map for, so there's a lot of good info, including information on what restricted would be. I think our conclusion was that we're fine on what we want to do. But it can, so one is, I think we can help them not have to do a FOIA and have that delay, because we can give them those documents. And I
I'm
believe
sure they're
there's
doing
more.
access, but,
But
let
yeah,
them know
but
that
they
again.
actually said FOIA, yeah, so I'll
Yep.
give you that, because that can
Great.
avoid them
Yep.
having to do
They'll
that and
speed
that
it up.
delay, and they might not get the right info under a FOIA because they didn't know quite what they asked for. So I'll share that, all those documents. There's 4, but there may be more on that site.
Okay.
For them. But the other aspect of that is, I think, for the grant application, this being a reuse site from a Superfund site is a big plus. We're doing it in a way that and it will add cost to construction, because you're moving, because you've got to really watch this contaminated soil underneath to not be too disruptive. But I think it really gives us an advantage as a unique site for reuse from a Superfund. So that is it. So I'll share those.
I have reached out to Jennifer Maud as well to ask her for her information.
This
And
is-
she
Right.
emailed me a whole bunch of
She's an
documents.
expert
That's
in the
the
field,
4
really.
documents,
Yeah,
right? And then
and-
I'll also, I'll be forwarding, because she forwarded me the email she had sent, but also I don't think her email mentioned what the portal is on the Eagle site to get, because there may be additional. Her Mac had
Yep.
crashed, so she's not sure if she
So you'll get
still
back.
has all of them.
You have that, right?
Yeah,
You-
so
you'll
I
get it
will,
Mike.
to
Great.
help one to sort of
Excellent.
cut through that for them,
Excellent.
but also
And
to at least.
anything we have that we don't, that we don't have to rediscover is
Rediscover, and
helpful.
also if you could share with them, I think it helps with the TAP grant. Yeah, I mean, it's a dual, you need the info, but also I think it's a leg up
Yep.
for the grant itself. So thank you so much.
Great.
you.
Others? Great.
Wendy, just
Please.
thank you again for everything you do. You're invaluable to this group. And thank you for seeking the 5 bids as well for the work. So spot on there. I just want to walk through timing to make sure I got it. So June of 25 would be our target for TAP submission. And that would be with the 30% engineering work. November of 25 is the TAP decision, November, December. Is that correct? All that in the OHM timing.
That is correct.
Okay, and then April 26th is the NRTF deadline. Summer 27 would be the award. So my question would be, and I'm hoping for the best here, but I just want to know if we have a plan B is, so if we get the TAP, and the TAP, let's say, gets up towards $1 million, but the project is we want to do it might be closer to 1.4. Would we be able to scale the design of Ford Field East just in case we don't get the NRTF grant? I just want to make sure as we have so many good projects coming that the first project doesn't just win, it wins on its merits. So I just want to make sure, if let's say we don't get that NRTF grant in April, that we do have a viable design that we could build out in 26 in time for the bicentennial and then not take, let's say, that gap that we would potentially get. And I am in no fan of scaling down the project, but we also have to
Yep.
be stewards of our money too.
Absolutely. There's two things I'd say to that. We will still be required to some level of local match with the TAP grant. So, but the idea of scaling from, say, 1.4 to 1.2, if that's what the local match would be, I think that's a very valid suggestion, and that's something that we can look at.
Okay, and then we'll have an opportunity to take a look at that downstream in terms of what
Oh,
that would
yes.
look like. Because I'm always a fan of looking at what the budget could give us and then what additional capital would get us to, and say, is the view worth the climb to do that, knowing that we have many projects to get done in time for the bicentennial. So I just, as long as we have that and we know that it's not a guarantee and we have an opportunity to maybe walk that 1.4 down if we have to. I'm not supporting it, but if we had to, at least have that discussion, then I'm good. And again, thanks for everything.
And just one thing to add, we've gone to SEMCOG quite a bit, and we went for that second roundabout for $1.5 million, and they came back with 2.3 million because others didn't do their complete program or didn't have their engineering done. So there's an opportunity for, and that's why I think they're pushing us right now, because a lot of, that's 7 counties is SEMCOG. A lot of people put their hands up for all these activities. They didn't do the groundwork for it, so they still have the dollars to spend. So we were actually shocked. I wasn't. I'm not shocked very often. We asked for $1.5 million, we got 2.3 million. That was enough to do the 3-way on that second roundabout. We are hoping for the same. And they actually came to us, on this TAP grant. I thought we were about tapped out on asking them for things.
Well, no, man, I am
Yeah, so
hopeful.
we are working with them. We will do everything they.
I'm entirely hopeful in this
Yeah.
group. I think we got the right people doing this.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, just in case, we just have a backup plan. And then one last question on the 50-foot right of way for the train. I assume that that's based on, let's say, a flat space between where the train is and where the right of way would be. But that's up on a bit of a pitch or up on a hill up there. Do you think that's going to present a problem if the train is kind of up on the pitch and prevents maybe people running towards it or being caught up in it or anything like that? I assume that's what the right of way is for, or for build side to side, because it is up there a bit.
I honestly don't know. That's an area where,
We'll
just
look
be
at
frank,
different
I don't
alternatives.
have
I'm hopeful that
I think
that might not
OHM.
come into play on
Yep.
your
Yeah.
design. That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Supposedly there's enough room between the railroad space and ours, but they're looking at an alternative, bless you, to come across the waterfall
Yeah.
before too.
No,
So
I'm-
there'll be alternatives time we go to the final on this.
You're doing
to
great
my
things.
knowledge.
Thanks, Mike.
Wendy,
Great.
thank you so much. And
Excellent.
without a memo, I'm
Yep.
totally impressed.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
eventually I got the memo. They caught up with you.
to go and get my other one back
Yeah.
We're winging
for
it.
the next
I
one.
am very impressed.
Well,
Thank you.
So with that, I'll open up if there's any comments on this consulting service proposal for anybody in the audience here. Going once, going twice. Okay, I will close off public comment for those here. Anybody online, and you heard us how to do it before, Ken? I don't think there's any new ones from when you said it before, so I'm gonna go slowly because it takes a couple seconds. Going once, going twice. I'm closing off public comment. This is a great test deal tonight, that we're doing it. And I know I tested it earlier so those that joined us later, everything is online now and you can call in online on every subject. So good. So we've closed off public comment. Any other discussion before I'm looking for a proposal to go forward with this 9A?
If we get the 1.4, that's a 28x return on that.
Yeah.
I know it.
Flyers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But we're going to get everything they're giving us right now. They've come back to us because I know there's 4 or 5 communities that couldn't get to their projects that were
Yeah.
licensed to get it from them and give them the grants. That's why we got more than we thought on the second round.
Yeah, so I'll do the motion.
Great, please do.
I want to say that because we do this groundwork and invest this way is why we can leverage the money.
Absolutely.
Just my bit.
And that's why they come to us because they
So
know
thank
we're
you.
lined up and we've looked through it
Yes.
and
We-
you've done a great
We
job.
can deliver. So I move to approve a consultant services proposal from OHM Associate an amount not to exceed $49,800 for preliminary engineering and design for a river trail extension through Ford Field East. It is further moved to reallocate $49,800 from City Hall improvements reserve to Ford Field East pedestrian pathway reserve within the Public Improvement Fund.
Great. We have a motion. Do we have support for that motion?
Support.
Support from
Support.
Ms. Janetti, from the Mayor Pro Tem activity here. Is there any other discussion on this? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Good.
Thank you.
Get that engineering going. Thank you very much. Oh, are you still there? Yep.
I am on.
A 9B, I'm giving you time to put up that presentation there, Ken. So 9B is the Ford Field Gateway Project Construction Bid Review. And we'll have to see maybe on timings on things. You're going to explain that to us, and you can explain a little bit more. Ken, I stalled as much as I could. There you go. Good.
All right. So I do have a little bit of a presentation here in
Okay.
addition to the memo that you received in
Great.
your packet. So just a beginning in terms of background information, on Wednesday, March 5th, we opened bids to construct the accessible gateway in Ford Field Park West and to stabilize the embankment along the border of the park. We received 4 bids for the work. Bids were structured to include pricing for a base bid with some alternatives that could be added in if the budget supported that. This was an alignment with discussions we have had with council previously. And so I'm coming back to you now with information about the bids, the bid pricing, some of your alternates, et cetera, so we can get some feedback from you. Once we receive the feedback at your next meeting, we'll come back with a contract award recommendation. So just so you know, we're discussing here today. So a little bit of information, Ford Field Park West, again, construction bid review. You could go to I'm just going to go back just a bit. You see the master plan here on the left-hand side. This is the master plan for the park that we have been working at implementing. We've done some work at Serenity Point, which is looking amazing, by the way.
It is.
If anybody has been out there.
And the water's flowing.
The water started flowing today and there were ducks out there already.
If you haven't
in
been down
the
to
ponds.
Ford
It's
No,
incredible.
I was there on the
Tomorrow,
weekend.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ducks, and they had perfect weather because it was dry and the water wasn't really coming and they were
Yeah.
diverting it.
So,
It's gonna be outstanding.
It's just amazing. We do have sort of a second phase of that, to do yet in July. So that's not completed, but it is done for a little bit. We're underway with the playground fundraising, which is going great as well. We're up almost to 35,000 in patronicity. And then we have a number of other, donations, people who have made, contributions and pledges. And then this now is the Accessible Gateway and Bank Stabilization Project. This project really has a number of different goals. 3 of the big ones are to improve the connection between the park and the downtown, to stabilize the embankment along Hutton Street, and then to create an accessible entrance into Ford Field from the downtown and from the neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Just to kind of remind everybody of the existing conditions, there is a lot of overgrown vegetation along this embankment of the park that really blocks the park from being visible. And so a lot of people, especially when you're on top of the embankment and coming from the downtown, you don't even really realize the park is there. This sort of entryway into the park coming from the west is also there's a chain link fence all along Hutton that's falling down. It's in disrepair. There are leaning power poles. It just looks like it could use some love at this intersection. Next slide, please. Then when you're in the park, you see there's an embankment all along the backside of the one photo. And the way up the embankment is from some wooden stairs. They're quite old, they're deteriorating. We've got some real challenges with the stairs. And then there's no accessible entrance. There is an entrance to the north up near Serenity Point, but that isn't accessible. It's got a very steep slope. Next slide, please. And then we talked already about the steep embankment. All the sidewalk all along Hutton is undermined in numerous places. There's a lot of erosion along the embankment. So again, this area really needs some attention and love. Next slide. Okay, what we originally brought to City Council is we went through a process of developing a design for how we can sort of tackle all of these things that we needed to in the area. And as frequently happens with concept designs, that came back and we all went, wow. It was 2,146,000 was the estimate of probable cost. And we had an allocation of 910,000. So we worked with OHM, went back to the drawing board, came up with some different alternatives. And this gives you a brief description of the changes. And what we did is we made some changes to try and bring it down as close to that 910,000 that we could. So first of all, the concrete or the plaza went from being brick to concrete. We turned the center circular area into a landscape bed, not something that had the obelisk in it. There is a hedge that runs all along the west side of the plaza that is now proposed to be a landscape hedge versus a brick seat wall. We removed all signage, figuring that that was something that could be done afterwards. We have a decorative fence that goes from the parking lot to the beginning of the stairway, but that's the only decorative fence that we have. Instead of burying the utilities, we are looking at replacing the utilities poles and raising the wires, cleaning them up considerably. There were brick columns in key places in the original design. We went to some decorative bollards instead. And then we are still doing crosswalk improvements because that is just a key feature of something that we need to tie this project to the downtown. Next slide, please. Other features we are looking at is the sidewalk all along Hutton Street will be replaced. That just really wasn't a choice. That was something that needed to be done. We went with black chain link fence along Hutton Street versus the decorative fence. And again, this is the base bid that we're looking at. We have a natural landscaping retaining wall behind Roberts Rock. That is less expensive than other types of retaining walls. And then we have the accessible walkway from Hutton Street, a natural walkway to Roberts Rock and Serenity Point, some stone stairs coming down from the pathway into Serenity Point. And the base bid has the staircase being removed. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we work through this. Next slide, please. Okay, so what that got us, if you look on the right-hand side here, we have revenue or funds identified of 1.4 million. I didn't detail everything that's in your memo. You can look at where that number comes from by looking at that one, by looking at the spreadsheet in your memo. And then we have consultant services. Your memo also breaks down some of these costs. A real big one is because of the soils on this site, we have needed to invest considerably more in geotechnical subconsultant fees than we had originally thought. When you pull those out, your consultant services are within the range of what we would expect for a project of this nature. The low bid for construction is AAA. They are doing business as Soleil, and so that's the price that we use here. If we have a contingency of $50,000, which is quite low, and we'll discuss that a little further, that gives us a project expenditures of 1.429, and that gives you about $24,000 where you can buy up. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. On the left-hand side, you see the four bidders and where the prices came in, ranging from $1,016,000 to $1.3 million. That's a little bit broad of a range, but if you look at typically what happens with bids is you get a low bid, you get a high bid, and then you get some people chunked in the middle. And that's exactly what we see here. So we being OHM, has compared all of the detail of these bids, and there isn't anything in the low bid that gives them any pause or any real concern. So we are comfortable moving forward with AAA underground. So the alternates from their bid are, you could go to decorative fencing along Hutton instead of the chain link, and that's going to cost an additional $23,000, which actually is really surprising to me. I thought it would be more expensive than that. You could do brick pavers in the plaza for an additional $27,000. You could do the seat wall on the west side of the plaza instead of the landscaping. And then we received prices to repair the staircase for $100,000. That would be done under a separate contract. The reason we are recommending removal of those at this point in time is purely based on their condition. And because of their condition, the bidders who bid on this project, they were not willing to warranty their work. That was one thing that was a concern. They also were really concerned. They didn't know what they would find once they started pulling off some of the worst pieces. And the more we looked at this, we realized that the substructure really is not, it's really in poor condition as well. And so the recommendation in this was in the memo from OHM that was in your packet as well, was removal. What we have been doing is some brainstorming about what options we have associated with those stairs. One of the things that we could definitely consider is going for a recreation passport grant in April next year. That has a dollar amount, a maximum dollar amount of $150,000. It is through the Department of Natural Resources. And so we could take the money that could be used now for a repair that we don't even know if it'll work. We could hang on to that, try and match it with a grant, and we would be able to get enough to rebuild those stairs with something that could last you another 30 years. So that's sort of our starting recommendation, but you all get to make these unfortunate decisions. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have as you talk about some of the different options. Claire Martin is here from OHM as well, if you have some questions about the more technical nature of things. And I have to apologize to Claire. I forgot to tell her the meeting time changed from 7 to 6:30.
So we didn't miss anything really. Excellent.
So she would have been perfectly on time if the meeting was still at 7. So I apologize. That was my oversight. Okay, a lot of information. I did kind of a brain dump. Any questions right up front?
Let me start first by saying, thank you again. A lot of work. This would be the biggest thing we've ever done in Northville, but we have everything else going on, as I say. It was kind of a focal point early on to bring people to Ford Field from downtown, you know, whether at one time, even the stairs is going to be, an amphitheater, this, that, and our grandiose thing. I would love to keep the stairs in there, even if we'd have to put perfume on the pig for a year or two, whatever. I got it. But I hear you. You've rolled me on the wires that we're trying to bury, because that was $1.4 million, and we still had to come up with $400,000, and it just wasn't worth it. We're putting the wires 40 feet up, so I got it. You roll me very well once in a while. On this, absolutely, we need the staircase sometime, whether it's so dangerous, they'll have to prove that to me, and you will, to take it down. But even to put, if we're doing the wrought iron fencing and wrought iron railings on it, it is in a state, it has maybe 5 years left of life at best. I got it. I remember when they built it, we all do around here. I believe sometime we can ask for another grant from DNR or whatever. At the same time, it would be great to have that staircase when we're doing the bathrooms. That would be the end of next year, and that gives us time to go after it. In my humble opinion, I think we need both the ADA entryway and we need a stair. I went by there the other day. Kids are going up and down. I know you cringe because it's not safe, but there was probably 50, 80 people up and down those stairs. We are trying to draw people there, you know, the alternative is to walk all the way down Racing and come in. We're going to do that for those. So appreciate it. So I'm all in on everything, even if I had to kind of roll against all the wrought iron all the way down or the wrought iron look. But it's cheap for $27,000 all the way down there. We want it welcoming. You're going to take the scrub trees out. I got it. Sometime we have to have, in my opinion, a staircase in and out of there, whether we have it right now. So those are my points.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, in fact, if I could suggest, let's stay on the topic of the staircase.
Yep.
For now, you know,
Right.
so we're not bouncing. So I fully support, we need that staircase. The question is, when do we do it?
Right.
So, you know, within this larger scope,
Right.
it is frequently used. And while I think it's wonderful that we're having this ADA access
Yep.
and it really opens it up. Many people use that as their quick up, quick down, and it's closer to town. So by doing all this great work with this ADA access and improving the sidewalk to get there, we're taking away what we currently have, which we don't really want to do, the stairway.
Right.
So, and brainstorm again, is there a way at this point to make sure it's ready for stairs? Meaning we already have the place for it, you know, we don't have to redesign where it goes down. It's all set. Whether or not we leave the existing ones there, you know, part of it could be, what do we need to do to take out those stairs so it's prepped that we're doing an install? Also, different materials for the stairs. Does it have to be wood? Is there a way to do it with some other material, metals? And I remember Nancy Dargan talked
Yeah,
about.
that
So there's
matches the fence.
But so I am like 150% where you're coming
Yep.
from. But the question is, what do we do right now? And, you know, so I'm gonna pose it to my fellow city council members, but first ask you, can we do something that we say, this is the optimal place to put the stairs? And the reason I'm saying that is because, you know, is that the optimal place? Should we move it? I think it gets steeper though, as you get closer to town. So I don't know that moving it closer to Maine is you know what
Yeah.
that I think this might be the optimal location. Is that what, did we get any
The
assessment?
way it's designed currently would be that any replacement stairs would be in the same location.
Which is fine.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how.
They did it
that's
80
how-
years ago, they thought that was
Yeah,
the
that's
place.
how it's structured currently.
All right.
Now, to answer your question, though, I did not ask OHM to evaluate whether there would be a better location for it.
Okay.
So, because there were two things there,
Okay.
but what is designed is to have them in the same location.
And I'm fine with
Good.
that. I just was
Excellent.
posing that. I didn't know if
Good
there was a
point.
recommendation on that. So I'm fine with that, but what can we do now? So that within the next year or two, like, can we leave the steps there? They've been there a long time.
I think I will call Claire up, but I'm going to give you sort of a gut reaction. My thought initially is to not spend the $100,000 to completely redo them, but possibly we reach out with park maintenance. Maybe we find some way to, you know, potentially
Bolster
just
them up
make
until we
them
get a bid.
safe
Yep.
for
Handrails.
Right,
something.
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
London.
handrail cost is, the handrail cost is actually quite expensive. I think it's almost half of the replacement, like, and that is part of what's making the stairs not up to building code is the stairs, and then stairs also, or the handrails. And handrails also have loading requirements. So then you're connecting new handrails to an old superstructure. You can't guarantee that it meets the railing requirements, so you can't guarantee it meets building code. So it has all these cascading effects. I do think the removal item in the bid was only like $2,500. So it would be no problem to just tell the contractor, leave the stairs where they are, connect to it. And then that gives you options going forward, especially if you are going to replace them in the next 3 years. If you're not planning on replacing them for several years, then the safety issue is an issue.
Right.
I mean, they're certainly not in good shape right now.
We need 2 years out of
Yeah, and the repair contracts that we solicited, or the bids that were solicited for that, they were more of a complete superstructure replacement. But then again, you're tying into the substructure. And so we certainly wouldn't recommend going forward with that because it's so costly and really what it needs is a full replacement.
So the $100,000 on your bid, that would not be a very logical investment for the future, just making sure they're safe enough for until the end of 26.
But that's, that's not in the base bid now? No.
The base
No,
bid is
it's not.
currently,
That's- I didn't think so.
right. That's the extra 100 of the
Yeah,
alternates.
Yeah, right.
So-
The base
Yeah.
bid has got
I would not be supportive
$2,500
of
for
putting
removal.
$100,000.
So Claire, your recommendation would be keep the stairs where they are and try to get them replaced in the next 3 years?
Yeah, if you want stairs going down, then I think you need to do a full removal and replacement and certainly look into different materials. I think one of our architects also suggested steel
Right.
as a good alternate there. And then you'd have to do, a full design, make it up to code. So there's, some fairly heavy lifting that would need to go into that, which is why you would be looking for grants. So,
Total estimated cost if we do tear it out and put a new stairwell in that's gonna have a 30 to 40-year lifetime.
So I did ask our architect about that and he was thinking in the $300,000 to $400,000 range, but that's again, a very rough order of magnitude cost.
And that would be wood.
No.
Another
That's
Steel.
composite?
probably steel, like
Oh,
the
okay.
Yep.
I didn't know
cheapest
what the
version
base
of
bid-
steel, of stairs.
Almost wood.
Yeah, no, certainly not like a Trex composite decking. That's not a good situation, but,
We're just gonna do a fireman's pole.
Sure.
Do a slide down there.
yeah, and I think,
Can't
we'd
good for our
be,
insurance.
we'd be wanting to talk further with the building official to see, what they think about the, safety of leaving them up
Right.
without doing repairs and, what he would recommend for, doing something to,
Right. Even
make it,
safety repairs.
yeah, go a
Just
year.
one quick question to Mayor Pro Tem's point. If you were to have to take them out, would the fencing up top have sections, be off in sections that you would not lose a significant amount of fencing to have bollards at intervals so that you're not taking apart the good work you did on the fencing to then go back in 2 years and put wrought iron stairs that match up to it, so we're not wasting money.
Yeah.
So can that be the design? I mean, not literally that you're going to plug one piece out and put one piece in, but you know what I'm saying?
Well, right now, I think the way that we have it in there is that the fencing goes up to the edge of the stairs as if the stairs were still gonna be there. Because it was like a
Okay.
last
Yeah, it
minute
was hard
change
to
to
see
take
on this.
the stairs out. So what we could do is we could either have them add in a couple panels. Because I think they're 8-foot section panels. So it wouldn't be hard to then remove one if you put one in, or we could use a couple of those decorative bollards. The low bid, those decorative bollards were only $1,000 a bollard. So, you could, if you removed the whole stairs, you could put in,
2 bollards as placeholders. essentially,
yeah,
for
just
your-
to say, don't, this isn't the way you want to go. Yeah, so there are options there.
I'll just say I'll go on record, I'm not in support of $100,000 if it doesn't get us to the 30-year
Yep.
beautiful plan, long-term. So.
Agree.
I support.
Especially when we're
We gotta
talking.
do. And if it's the 3 years out and we don't think we can be up to code and we don't think it's safe, then I might support taking them out so that we don't have any safety issues until the new ones are in place. But we can have that discussion outside of here.
Okay.
Right. And I think one other thing that we didn't mention on the stairs is that there are a couple of like timber retaining walls that are associated with the stairs. And so even if you did the repairs, that would potentially still be a concern. And they're, again, holding up slopes. So that's something that we can work with the building official outside of.
But are we leaning to leave the stairs in place for now? That's what
I am.
I am
just
leaning
saying
to keep the stairs in place. That is my opinion. And John will still speak to and go the full repair, get a grant for at least half of it, whatever it's going to be, in that 2 to 3 to 3.5, whatever it's going to be, you'll come back with that. That'll give us time to get an additional grant just for the stairs. And it would be great. I mean, we talked offline on this when we're doing the bathrooms to be doing those stairs at that time. That's the end of 26. It's the beginning of 25 now. It's doable and put the minimum, make sure they're safe to use the stairs right now. That's my opinion. John, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, we're good. It's an important topic. I mean, so my take, and I know we're not voting today, so it's more directional. But I would agree with where the conversation's going. First, the idea of putting $100,000 that's going to buy us a handful of years with no warranty, where we could end up putting all that money in and in a year or two, having to still revisit the same conversation doesn't make sense. I would also say I appreciate you guys coming with ideas, because when I first saw the stairs being as one of the options or a recommendation to remove, it was concerning, because I do agree with all the comments today of we need to have an access point there and we need to invest in that and we need to have a plan to achieve that. So I love the idea though of, can we combine a grant with that 100,000, start setting aside and planning for it now so that we can have that be part of the plan. I would also agree if there's a way we can keep that stair as a bridge, assuming it's safe.
Yep.
I'd support that in an interim, but as soon as it's not, we're gonna have to transition. We just need to plan for the location and timing so we can execute on it. So, I mean, I think in general, it seems like that's a consensus, but we can't remove completely. We need to have an access point there. I'll just give my other comments. One, in terms of the decorative fencing, I'm obviously on record and we've had some discussions on this already, but I think we should hold ourselves to the same standard as the historic district. If we're gonna spend all the money on this, we need to make it look nice, consistent, and last a very long time. I think that's a great return on investment. I would also say the brick paver plaza over the concrete. To me, that does deliver a lot of value and it fits with Northville in terms of look and feel and consistency. I am, at least right now, not sold on the second seat wall along the west edge of the plaza at 49,000. That's cost more than both of the first two items.
I do those two items you mentioned instead of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that seems like
Absolutely.
something along with the interim fix on the stairs that we could
Better
remove
return for our
to
investment.
get us closer to in budget.
And it's, as you said, the fencing came in a little bit more reasonable than you thought. You were amazed that it was $27,000. And the brick is actually pretty reasonable for 23,000. We might be able to even find somebody that will do that for those little bits. But yeah, so those are doable ones. The 100,000 is not, and the $50,000 for the other opportunity on the, just the seating area. No, I agreed with, and you took that cement out and you're putting bushes or, decorative landscaping there. Good
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
Is-
Absolutely.
So part of that was, so my question is, so number one, I am very grateful that and it's called a custom DDA fence, but it's really a decorative fence. Yeah, they're not fabricating it just for us. It's,
Right, it's custom in that it's not a stock.
right, but it's yeah, but it is one that, right, so, and I'm not sure if it's, that the decorative fence is less, but the type of chain link we were getting was also not cheap. So it's just the cost differential, right, between the two. So I fully support the chain link fence. One, it's HDC guidelines, you shouldn't have chain link fence in the HDC that's here, so what we ask of our residents, we shouldn't behave differently.
Yep.
And the cost seems to warrant that. Interestingly, I could go either way. The thing with the concrete with the brick pavers is really, it's not like brick, it's not like sidewalk, because it's exposed aggregate and then etched concrete. So it already had a decorative aspect to it. So I could go either way on that one, but I'll go with whatever consensus is. The brick seat wall, and I don't know if it's like, it must be a brick seat wall or it must be a planting bed. Part of that was to sort of make that sort of encapsulate the area, make it welcoming, make it to catch the eye. And I'm not sure that the planting bed does that, but I don't know that it has to be a brick wall. Like, could there be decorative fence? Because could there be some like decorative fencing there? Is it one or is it?
Like a mini fence in front of the.
Yeah, is there,
The bushes.
again, Nancy Darga's here.
Yep.
I remember.
Of the.
If you don't, I want that deep diving from your feet.
The concept plans that we did had the seat wall in it. The
Yeah.
replacement of it's a shrub. not just a planting bed.
But an
So
evergreen.
it's not like a full height evergreen, but it would
Oh,
have
well.
some sort of vertical element. And we don't want to go too high
No.
there because it's so close to the road.
And you want to see.
But
And you want to
into
be
the
able to see
park.
from the other side of the road into the park.
But we're very limited now because before it was, well, we'll just do boxwoods, right? But now boxwoods are dying everywhere. So you're stuck with a low U or something like that you have to prune. So I'm just, I just was throwing it out because it's a lot of money, the $49,000 for a brick wall. And that's brick veneer, I'm assuming.
It's a CMU block wall with a brick. over it.
Veneer,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So again, on that, I'm really torn because we need that differentiation. I'm not sure if just shrubs get us there, even though the price is right, it's still only a few $1,000s, right? Because it's a planting bed.
There's the first thing that came to my mind actually is we have decorative bollards in other places on the project. The
Right.
first thing I thought of is maybe there's 3 or 4 or 5 decorative bollards within that landscape bed as well
Sure.
to help define that a little bit more. And they were what, 1,000 apiece?
Yeah, and they're already on the outside of that kind of U of the shrub. So it was
Right.
like bollard, line of shrubs, bollard.
So so you think that rather than a fence or something, a low fence or probably better? I'm just spitballing.
Yeah. That
I
could
need
be
to
an
be
option.
spitballing where we're at now,
The
but
bollards like behind the band shell on, ones that they don't hold back 7,500 pounds, but they're there for decoration and hold back some.
so.
Correct, they'd be
Yep.
prettier than the
Yeah,
ones that are out there.
Thank
Again,
you.
I'm not trying to throw a wrench into it, but I'm saying 50,000 is a lot of money, or 49,000 is a lot of money, but it had a purpose. It had a purpose of that delineation and the feel when you were in there and drawing your eye to it. We've lost the obelisk, we lost the arch. Maybe someday in the future, we can have art at that. We've got the hole right in the middle it's not a hole, but we have the circular area in the middle of is it an eclipse?
Could be
What would you
earmarked for
call it?
that. Yeah.
So we have places that in the future we could make those investments, correct?
Yeah,
But
and we
in-
did include conduit too underneath, so you could potentially in the future put an electrical wire through it, do
Great.
lighting, something
Yeah.
like that.
So that's where I'm torn on that one because it's a lot of money, but there was a reason for it, right? So is there something, again, open that for discussion. The other is, I mentioned that, is this, for the material review, this of what they're going to propose for use of materials, it still needs to go to HDC. Because they had some comments and good ideas about the veneering and how it looks from Ford Field, in the field looking up on that wall that's going to be there at the eclipse. So, but the materials will all go before HDC for review. So we don't need to, okay. So yeah, I'm interested what other people think about these 3 items.
Any other comments? Any, Andrew?
Yeah, just a couple things. Again, outstanding. I lost my notes. I can take it or leave it on the pavers. I think they chip. They look great at the beginning. I think long-term, they're gonna be replaced. They're probably gonna replace quicker than concrete. We can see what it looks like in downtown. When they chip and they go, it's really rough, but if the rest of council wants to go with it, that's fine, but that's maybe not the top of my list. The fence, I'm in full support of. And then when it comes to the west side where that number 3 is, my concern on, let's say, a fence would be snowplow damage coming around there. It only takes once and that thing will buckle. So I think I'd rather see something a little more durable, like maybe the shrubbery and some bollards that could, denote where that is when there is snow. We'll see it all the time because that fence line would be right where the snow would get pushed and it might not last one season. So I would not be a fan of the fencing there. I would probably have something a little more durable and a little more capable of handling snow getting pushed through that area or a car coming off that. So I can take it or leave it on the brick wall, but I would not support fencing in that area. It just won't work,
Got you.
in my opinion. So I'm full support of the fence. Brick wall might be the way to go, but that is a little hard in appearance. I would just wonder if let's say the bushes, if they're used or whatever they're gonna be, would survive the snowplow and everything getting pushed through that, so we're not replacing bushes every year. And they always look dead, taking away from salt and everything else that's gonna push up there. So I would love to see that, but we are a winter community, so I'd probably be more in line with the hard wall with the seating. And then if we did any kind of bushing or anything on the inside, would be away from the road. Just for long term, we're not going back every 2 years and replacing damage and whatnot.
Laura, anything to add?
Mm-mm.
You rolled us on the fencing. I agree. We wanted that look and feel, and it's reasonable. So
I am too.
I am all in on the fence. So when, I know you're coming back, we're not doing a motion tonight. You brought up a interesting concept with the more decorative bollards. That kind of does your eye against, and I personally, as it's come around here too, I don't need that bricking, but we can have, you know, the pavement, you know, they can almost, you know, push into, it looks like it's textured or what have you. So the bollards is a more reasonable, there's nothing cheap in life. It's a value added option that brings a difference from one space to the other, and it's protective too.
I know we've got time, because I'm kind of in a similar zone. I know we've got some time as this is all gonna come to fruition, but if
It is St. Patty's Day.
examples of that concrete pattern versus the brick and what that looks like.
Right.
And I don't know if that's gonna be required to think of HDC in that process, but as that's coming together, whether it's a picture, photo mapping, or we could actually physically see, that would be really helpful, because I think we're all trying to connect the dots on what it is, but the last thing we want to do is
The
approve
more
something
options,
and
the
it
better
doesn't
when you come
to
back
life.
for our motion that we're going to approve this next time. Is that correct?
The goal would be to have you approve a contract award at your next meeting.
Yep.
And what I'm hearing is we definitely want to go with the decorative fence as an add. And then based on, we could maybe do a couple of quick renderings or something to, or even just some pictures we can find online to demonstrate what concrete versus brick looks like.
Right.
I think that,
Bollards.
that decision could be made on the spot at your next meeting.
Okay.
However, if we're going to award a contract, and we really need to know what you want to do with that brick wall tonight.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to make some adjustments to the contract then.
And it could just be, you know, no on the brick wall, but once you have a contract in place, we'd like you to ask the contractor what other options there are.
Right.
But we want to know whether or not to go forward with the brick wall as part of the award.
I think we heard, I'm no on a brick wall.
Well, I'm
You know,
not a no, I'm just,
Well-
it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Of course, we want it all. We want it all before.
I agree with it's a lot of money, but replacing bushes and it just seems like that would be in the future a lot of money too, like with the snow pushing up against there.
And it does get a pile.
Yeah.
I mean, because you look at where that is, the snow's gonna get pushed into it
Mhm.
because of where it is on the road curvature.
So sturdy bollards or the wall. Yeah, that little fence that you said.
I'll support whatever is gonna be durable over time, knowing that that's the condition there. And then I'll if there's an aesthetic that everybody else goes for, I'm not gonna be putting myself in front of that, but I do want something that's gonna be durable.
I'm with you, Andrew.
Yep.
How about if we have some conversations with Department of Public Works
Yep.
and get their feedback
Oh,
on
okay.
what makes the most sense in the proximity to the roadway?
Yep.
And then we can provide you with some recommendations.
If we
Good.
could push that to the next meeting, I know you wanna move on it, but I think it would just be important we get this
Yep.
part right.
Yeah.
Right. Agreed.
That'd be my position.
And you are going to try to keep those stairs for a couple more years. Is that correct?
We're
That's what
going
I
to
heard.
try and keep the stairs for a couple
From a
more years.
safety, have it
We'll
looked
have to
at.
do a little bit more research.
Then we'll go for a grant to replace the whole thing. It wasn't worth the $100,000 to
Right.
kind of make them safe. We're going to make them really safe in 2 years. That's what I hear.
And just as, because the concrete and the aggregate weren't cheap in and of themselves, you know, doing that. But if there's any ideas they have about the etched concrete, or if there's something that cost a little bit more that you said, well, it's not brick, but it's something, so that's another thing, but I don't know what, you know, gives that distinctive look.
Different plaza plan views out there. I know that was in the plans that you provided us.
Mm-mm.
But there are two different plan views in the plans that Wendy sent you.
Yeah.
And the one is the etched concrete and the etching would be like kind of in that, yeah, the diagonal pattern. And then the
Yeah.
outside has like an exposed aggregate look to it. So, yeah, and then the one on the right side is what the brick paper is.
Where is the exposed aggregate?
It's the dark gray around like the outside of the,
Oh, there's not much of it.
no,
Okay,
it's like a border.
okay. Is there any way to incorporate exposed aggregate in to make it more distinct or no?
I'd have to go look at the bid pricing and the difference between the etched and the exposed aggregate. If it's similar, you can just swap them out. If it's, double, then. we might
Yeah, and
have
it's
a
hard to know from,
conversation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you can forward a lot of that, in the next couple of weeks to us too, individually, and work with, ones that have brought that up, Barbara, and all of us have different concepts. Get our inputs before we get to that next
No, I'm
meeting.
just to try to make it distinctive as a surface,
Yep.
but not break the bank.
Mhm.
And we'll
Is
work with each
that-
other
is that a fair
individually.
way
We
of
can't have
saying
three in the same place at the same time, but individually you can do that and two can talk about it. So, that will make it more efficient. Good. Any other questions here? Stay close. Any comments? Come right up to the mic on this subject.
Uh-oh.
Be safe.
2 minutes,
Little
Brian.
green. Oh, yeah, and this is, so no, Nancy, it is 2 minutes now for every subject. So that not to,
She's here,
so I will give you some leeway.
well,
today.
no, because, well,
I got you. So give us more information.
Nancy
Don't worry
Darga.
about it.
Keep it at
You just talk more than you just allotted.
I appreciate
me.
that. Duly
Yeah,
noted.
yeah. Nancy Darga, 516 North Center Street. Thank you very much for being here instead of celebrating St. Patty's with green beer, taking care of the city's business. In terms of feedback that I have gotten from the River Restoration Task Force on this project, I would like to make the following points. One is that they are very glad that the project is proceeding despite the ups and downs and the thing. And they want to compliment Wendy, although her head is big enough, about how much she was willing to work with us on the pros and cons of it. They're obviously in favor of the decorative fencing, which you guys support. The number two is that they do like Councilperson Krenz questioned the durability and the potential toe catching of brick in there. Although brick is warm and friendly, they were in supportive of the decorative concrete in terms of low maintenance and stuff. In terms of the wall in front of the feedback we got from the historic district is that they liked the wall because there was seating as part of the wall, where if there's bushes, there is no seating. And the seating faces out, which is really nice too. The other thing is they like the word Northville that was worked into the wall. Is that still part of the plan?
It can be in the future, but it's not a part of the base bid.
Oh, she's so, please.
That means you really want it.
That's a change. That's a change, but anyways, the 49,000 and thank you, Laura, for pointing out that when you start looking at maintaining evergreens on a road, which salt and
Okay,
everything,
keep going. You're part of the presentation.
anyways, that starts adding up fast in terms of place. So 49 sounds like a lot, but what has to be weighed is the asset it provides. Does it provide a sense of space? Does it provide seating? A nice name, Northville, in the wall would be really cool.
We've heard that.
In it, and it would provide a barrier for traffic getting a little out of a line on it. The one thing that we were still hoping for was that we had some kind of pillars on either side to define the space so that it formed a picture frame as you look out into Ford Field. And I realize that I don't know if that's going to happen, but if you were going to use decorative bollards in the fencing, perhaps we could still do that on the brick wall. In closing, what we wanted to say is, I know that this project is not easy. I know that there are people questioning it. When they comes, they're going to love it, believe me. The other thing is it will open a vista into Ford Field that will tell the community when they come to Northville to visit us that there's more here than meets the eye. In other words, it will invite people to see that there's exciting historic space and a historic village there because we're going to create a vista. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate it. Anybody else on this subject?
Good evening.
Good
Lenore
evening.
Lewandowski, 119 Randolph Street. So
Very green.
this is a major change, and I'm not opposed to it because the original plan was beautiful but very expensive. So I'm not opposed to the change. My concern is with the protocol because I know that it's been before HDC and HDC approved a certain plan, and now I feel like there's enough change that it needs to go back to HDC. And so
It will go back to.
Okay,
yeah,
I just-
They will
I
go back to HDC.
I don't know, you're talking about timelines here, and I was a little confused about whether you guys would approve something
Yep.
and then try to send it to HDC, so,
HDC has to approve. before it
okay,
goes.
that was my
Well, we
concern.
can approve the bid,
Right.
but the materials and design, yeah.
Okay, so you can just approve, okay,
Just
it's
to
a
go to
little
bid.
confusing exactly what you're approving and what HDC needs to do. All right, thank you for that clarification.
Good. They will have a bite at the apple still. Yes. Good. Anybody else in the chamber? Going once, going twice, closing off chamber comment. Doesn't look like we have any new people online. You don't have to go through that whole deal.
I just tested it too. I dialed it myself.
Yep, and I did a couple times early, so everybody's partying out there tonight, I guess. Great.
Clarifying.
Yeah, sure.
It's kind of an
Clarifying
obvious
question.
one.
Go
I
right
did,
ahead.
yeah, but what Nancy said prompted me on that. And
Okay.
also,
Sure.
Andrew Krentz. So we have at best 24/5 to work with, right?
And in the existing budget.
In the existing budget, and that's with a pretty thin margin on contingency, but
That's correct.
we can deal with
Mhm.
just staying with the 5%. So if we, sort of the chain link fence with a little bit left over, maybe $1,000, that gobbles that part up. So that's pretty, so if we did decide, and there wasn't, to go with the brick seat wall, because it does have the seat, and also the issues of the snow. But if we did, where do we get, because that's $48,000, basically.
There's two options. You have nothing for contingency, which would mean then if we run into the need for ads, we'd have to come back to you and ask for additional money. Or the other thing is we'd have to look at increasing the budget somehow. And I'd have to go back and talk with Sandy and see if we've got some other way.
Doing
Because
other
we
things.
could be looking a little bit at the next fiscal year, because our next fiscal year begins July 1. Not that we're loaded, because we've
Right.
already got a lot of things lined up, right, George?
So we're going to be coming for a more in-depth conversation with council in about 4 weeks now, talking about overall 6 years of capital improvement. And I would say that, if council has some part of this component that they absolutely want to have, then obviously you just have to tell us and we're going to figure out and make recommendations on where to pull the money. But there are a number of projects lined up over a couple of years that we want to try to deliver. And so I think being judicious in the first project, so you can try to continue to do them. And, we tried to get the marching orders from a couple of council members were to try to get to a base project that was 910,000. That was not possible. With all you wanted to do and all the things that were in the grant, and also the fact that the engineering was complex and there were some different starts and stops, it was just not possible to do. This was as close as we could get it. So it's just difficult trade-offs, but I think that the trade-offs are important because there's a lot of things we want to deliver in the future. If it's bathrooms, it's a staircase made out of, metal. There's a lot of good things to do. It's just going to take
Yeah.
funds.
So, and I just thought we hadn't talked about, like, okay, we do have the 40. Is
Yeah.
that, so we'll have to have those conversations.
Correct.
I will know, I mean, to your point, George, because we did challenge to try to get close to 910. We cut, what, close to $1 million off the original
At
quote.
least.
So I still appreciate the effort to fight towards that. I think starting with a target and working as close as you can to it and then trying to figure out if there's critical add-ons where we're going to find the funding is the appropriate way to operate. So I appreciate that journey, even though it hasn't been a fun one.
Yeah, we cut the journey about $1 million out of it so far.
I'd also venture to guess, just knowing the condition of the ground and what we'll find, eliminating contingency is probably not something.
I would not support eliminating contingency.
Okay.
It's already pretty
I
thin.
think that
Yes.
will get used would be my guess based on discovery.
We generally do a 15% or.
Excellent. So we had discussion here, we had input.
Anyway, sorry.
I am looking for, you're really not looking for a motion. You just got your input, right?
Yep.
So
We-
you have
we
all the
received our
input that you
input.
need tonight
Yep.
from us?
And I have some ideas. Claire and I'll have a
Great.
conversation, and I've got some thoughts about what we might be able to bring
Great.
back.
And work with individuals or two at a time, not three, between now and the next meeting, and let's get it lined up.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
So we did add one thing from the consent agenda onto the regular agenda, and that is yours.
Yep, so it's consideration of approving a payment to Northville Commons Farmers Market. So this was to do some immediate site improvements to allow the farmers market to continue to happen this summer. And it was $100,000 in total, $50,000 from each partner going into the consortium. But after having some conversations with the city attorney, we're not exactly clear on what the final entity will look like. So city attorney recommended that we just take out the ink portion of the resolution and transfer the money to the Farmers Market Consortium, which is the Act 7, is that proper term? So the Act 7 entity, not to the incorporated entity. And that would take care of any problems in the future. If there is an entity it has to transfer, then the consortium could transfer that money at a later date. So same motion, except taking out the Inc. portion of it, the incorporated portion, because it's going to the actual consortium, which is the Urban Cooperation Act entity created by Northville City and Northville Township. And with that, I would just ask if you could approve.
And just to add to that, there's been a lot of discussion since it started. The township took the lead and it was going to be the separate, entity. And we can't, the way they set it up, we can't really get insurance because it's not the city or the township. So it may not be the entity exactly the way we set it up. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I've had discussions in the past 3 or 4 days with Abel and others. We had a lot of input on how to arrange it.
Yeah.
We worked with them. Now we are kind of trying to manage it a little bit better. So you are involved in your team a little bit more. So it was Ernie and the team. They did a great job. It's going to be a farmer's market May 1st. We have to put some adjustments, as I say, perfume on the pig by May 1st to make sure that we have a farmer's market. There will be a farmer's market May 1st. We have bought the front, the township, we will buy the back next week for the city. And we will probably buy it ourselves, and then we will put them together in the consortium. It's not exactly the way, we want it yet, and we want to make sure we have insurance and legalities. So I'm comfortable with it. They're comfortable with it. We have two great partners working together that are buying the two separate. And the way it was set up, it was different to go with the consortium, the way we set up that original deal. I agreed. It wasn't set up exactly right. It wasn't kind of all of our opportunities we're working with the township. A lot of hands in that. Okay, that's the 40,000 foot. Am I
No, I
close to
think that's
that?
exactly right. It's always been our interest, and I think members of the council have made that clear,
Yep.
to run this directly out of the Act 7. They were, we had a very tight, compressed time frame to get everything implemented. They wanted the ability to include a nonprofit that the Act 7 would start. And so we, within the agreement, allowed that the Act 7 may create the nonprofit, but at this point, it looks like everything will be operated directly by the Act 7, which again has always been my preference anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think several members of the board.
And the upkeep, we are looking long-term to activate it, will be Parks and Recreation. I mean, we're still looking at that. So it'll be one of the sites that they'll activate it. It's farmers market on Thursdays between May and October. It'll be other things for Parks and Rec. So they are actively involved right now. So it's not exactly, but it is a work in progress, and we are working wildly for the next 40 days to get it ready.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nancy. for all you do on that.
So, and it costs money just to get it.
It costs money. It will cost money, and we're trying to bring in electricity and some water. We're just trying to fill the potholes. We have to wait until the asphalt facilities are open. That's in about 2 or 3 weeks. The timing is unbelievable. It will happen. So trust me, won't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And just for direction for, well, it's Michelle Massel today, but for the clerk and putting together the minutes that everything in this, so, because so often we just block copy what's in
Right.
background and that, so no mention of Inc., INC.
Right.
So in whatever's put in here, it's,
Yep.
okay, it's all consortium, so
Right.
just, so any, because it's mentioned several times, so not only
But
in just the recommendation, the motion, but
Yep. The land consortium.
yeah.
Good.
Do you mind?
Any comment? We're just kind of making sure we get going, and it's just a legality at this point. So any other input from those on council? Anybody from those in council chambers? Anybody online? Anybody still up there? No? Okay. So I'm closing off public comment here. I'm closing off public comment online, going once, going twice, sold. I'm looking for a motion to go forward so we can get this farmer's.
Mayor, I'll take a shot at it.
Good.
I move that the Northville City Council approve the payment of $50,000 to the Northville Commons Farmers Market Consortium.
So we have a motion. Do we have support for the motion? Any other discussion? Great. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. That's what you need.
That's what we
You
need.
took
Thank
it off
you.
the consent agenda. So let's go to number 10, Mayor and Council Communications. Happy St. Patty's Day. A lot going on here in the past weekend about St. Patty's Day. The seniors had their Shamrock Shindig, which many of us were there Friday, and a lot of green over there. They had Pie Day down at the mill race, and they ran out of pies, so they went out and bought some more pies and kept selling them all day. And a great event, and John will talk about on Declan's dance. It was outstanding, bringing the community together, and I'll let you say that. And the St. Patty's Day stumble, they were going between the taverns in downtown. That's what they called it, going around the different bars and restaurants and other things.
Well, and retailers.
And retail, yes, they brought the retailers and the restaurants together. It was a good event. I think it'll get better and better. It was fun. And thank God it was a pretty good weekend for weather here too. So it's all about the weather. If you were downtown, I think I saw just about everybody. I spent quality time with about everybody in here. So that's all I have. Enjoy the week, and I'll bring it over to others.
All right. I can kick it off here. So we've had a lot of exciting topics related to Ford Field tonight. I am going to add one more. And I'll start with a thank you for everyone that came out, everyone who supported Declan's dance on Saturday. It was incredible seeing everyone out there, and I appreciated it so much. I am going to give a little bit of an update on that. So we had over 500 tickets sold for the event, stayed under capacity at all times for the record. But we did push the
Fire
envelope.
marshal, he's not here. It's okay.
And in terms of fundraising, I'll start with the City Patronicity campaign because it really is a united effort throughout, and it's all going to the same place. But we are currently at $34,560 there, or at least as of about 3 o'clock. That is continuing to go. So we're going to keep pushing that and driving towards it. Like I said, it was so exciting seeing so many people out for Ford Field and the Ford Field Playground Project. And that effort is a huge impact for our community. But I will add to that on Saturday night, we added an additional $45,627 at Declan's dance.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Thank you to everyone who came, who supported, who got the word out, and keep pushing the patronicity effort because we're going to make an amazing park and playground that kids for generations to come are going to enjoy. And that's really exciting to be part of. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Others?
It's amazing.
Just one thing is, while I was there was somebody who lived in the Gaslight District I was talking to, and he was very thankful about the accommodation that's been made to keep the Gaslight District going. So
great.
George, it was a tip of the hat to
Good.
you and what the city had done.
Absolutely.
So just in that neighborhood, they made a point to discuss that, and they were very happy that they get to keep the charm of their area. So thank you, George, for supporting that work.
Big thanks to Mike.
Yeah.
Dominic did a lot of work for years on this and to
Certainly,
the- and to the neighborhood association as well.
This was a hard one, and so they were thankful. So I just wanted to bring that to light and share that.
It was a 5-year opportunity. Others? Good?
You good?
Anything? I'm looking for a motion for adjournment. Do
I
have that
move to
motion?
adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good.